Great. Thank you, Athena. I see a quorum. It is September 25, 2025. This is a 3 p.m. regular meeting of the Community Resources Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, which extends through June 30, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet in a remote or hybrid manner without a quorum of members in person, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or by telephone. No in-person attendance of members of the public is possible, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. I'm going to go through we have a quorum, we've started recording, and I'll just see if everyone can be heard. Kathy?
Yes, here.
Councilor Hanneke?
Present.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Pam is present. Pat DeAngelis is not going to be here today. We also, just as a note, Stephanie Ciccarello, staff for discussing the solar bylaw, is not going to be here today. Dave Zomek is out of the office. And so we'll work on the solar bylaw as planned, but we'll be doing some editing without the input from staff. Our next item is number 2, public hearings. There are no public hearings. I'm looking at the attendee list. Our item number 3 is general public comments, open to the public for up to 3 minutes, but I do not see anyone in the audience. If we see someone in the audience later, I may ask permission to open it up for their comments, since we did not have anybody at this time. So we're going to move to action items, which is item number 4, and we'll talk about the solar bylaw. Is there anything I needed to say about it? I don't think so. Mandy, are you going to be able to share your screen? Or do you want me to?
I got it.
Okay. We have Nate Malloy coming, but as I said, we thought we would be talking about the housing production plan right around 4, and that's when I invited him to come as a panelist. So if I see him, that's great. We just said that there were folks that may need to attend a meeting at 5 in person, so that as best possible, we'll try to wrap this all up by quarter of 5. Okay. There's one person Nate Malloy is the person in the audience. So Nate, if you would like to make a public comment period is open, but we'll come back to your topic at about 4. So noted. Let's take a look at the text. So as we talked about, we were going to start with section 12.
So while we're pulling that up, I have a comment and a question. I saw in the Gazette that the Shutesbury solar bylaw, which was challenged there was a challenge to it. The state found it complied with what they would want to see in a bylaw and didn't go overboard in the restricted areas. So that's my comment. My question is, could we put that in our packet just so people can look at that? And I'm not asking that for today. I requested a copy of it. So as we go back and look at our bylaw, their wording that was taking health, safety, environment kinds of things, that's where the challenge was, and it withstood the challenge. So I just thought we should look at the wording of it, where we have similar wording, and that was my question. So I didn't want to asked you
Yep.
to put it in the packet so people knew why I was putting it in the packet. Okay.
Yep, that's great. If you have it, then I won't have to go look for it. If you want to email me that, well, actually, do you know how to put something in the packet?
I think
You
if
just,
I think
you just save it.
if I am an authorized member of CRC, which I wasn't for a long time, the answer, are we talking about SharePoint?
Just email me. Just email it to me.
No, I do know how to put things in SharePoint, but you know, until recently I wasn't one of the entitled people. But I will send it to you. I mean, I'll send it. Pat DeAngelis has it because I asked her first if she had it and then she got it. But
Okay, great.
I'll send it with a copy
Thank
to the 5 of us, and then you can put it on. Okay.
Thank you. Great. So the section we're starting with is reporting, general reporting requirements. And there have been a number of comments made from previous meetings. The first being that we should include a specific time period, such as the first 12 to 24 months, not less than annually, require a report after heavy rain events and include recipients. So I think we upgraded this to include some of that. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped down below. Can we start with section 12011 at the top of the page? Any comments before I make a comment?
So I can't raise my hand other than this
Okay,
way.
okay, yeah, that's fine.
It's
I'll
a
keep an eye.
stupid thing that SharePoint, that Zoom does now. If you're sharing your screen, you can't raise your hand. It's ridiculous. So I, large storm events don't exist. They are heavy rain events, I believe, under the
Yes.
definitions. So we should change that in that section. Stephanie indicated that we should delete the PGA from this section. And weekly reports, that seems a bit overkill to me, I must say. A weekly basis during construction for what? Shall submit a report on a weekly basis and after heavy rain events to these people. What's this report for? So again, it doesn't indicate a report on what. And just another terminology question. Operator of a LGPI, I think our definition should actually reference the SPI, a solar photovoltaic installation, not an LGPI, but I'd have to go back. These are notes from like 12 versions ago. But I guess I just ask, is LGPI the right reference versus a solar, instead of large scale ground mount photovoltaic, don't we use solar photovoltaic installation or something? So I just ask, let's look at the reference. I don't want to scroll through and have you guys have to stare at a scroll through. But yeah, what report? What are they reporting on is the big question I have here. And is weekly too much?
I'm gonna add my 2 cents. I also thought that weekly was pretty heavy duty. A report is different than site inspection, and I think even at Hickory Ridge, there was staff going down, or someone was responsible for going down and looking at activity at least weekly. But that's different than a report. So I agree that it would want to be clarified what the report was for. And that also weekly is pretty heavy duty. And then also large storm events does need to be corrected and turned into heavy rain events. As far as LGPI, that kind of surprises me because designated LGPI as sort of the topic for the bylaw, I would be surprised that we would use any other terminology unless we used new terminology throughout the entire document instead of LGPI.
I guess my question is, the solar photovoltaic installation seems a little bit more comprehensive than LGPI.
But we're only regulating LGPI. We aren't doing a bylaw for small scale,
That's true.
right? Jennifer.
I was just gonna say what you said. I'm trying to take my hand down. Yeah.
So can we make that note about what are we actually reporting on?
Yep.
And then to the comment about delete PGA. So if I think about who is involved at this point, it's essentially a construction project. The building commissioner is the point of contact for that office. But yet we've been bending over backwards to try to change everything to PGA throughout the bylaw so that we recognize it could be flexible. And I don't think in this case, if the PGA is, so the building commissioner is not the granting authority. The granting authority would have been the ZBA. You know, Mandy.
Yeah, but this is during construction, so this is after all the permits have been granted,
Yeah,
right? And so the
Yep.
PGA has nothing to do with this project at this point.
right. And I think that was the point here, is that the PGA doesn't revert over to building commissioner. The PGA at this point is out of the picture.
Which is why I think Stephanie said delete it.
Yeah. I guess I'm okay with that, with deleting. The building commissioner is mentioned in there as an entity.
And I guess, again, we have to make note what report, because that would depend on whether I'd agree with the rest of the stuff, the rest of the reporting places.
So during construction, often what is reported on is the number of vehicles on the site, the number of personnel on the site. Sometimes the weather and temperature and the extent to which construction proceeded or, achieved in that past week. It's typically just sort of tracking where decisions were made. It may not be onerous, but on the other hand, it's unclear why the fire department needs to know that there were 10 trucks on site or something. So our job here is to figure out what we're reporting on, clarify that. Okay, can we move on? .012, post-construction. The owner operator shall submit a report with photographs within 48 hours of a heavy rain event, which is fine. Erosion, sedimentation, condition of ground surface, soils, etc. Any issues? The comment here was reports by third-party inspector paid for by the owner operator selected by and acting under the direction of the building commissioner. So that's the person reporting.
Again, oh, this one did get changed to heavy rain event. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think Stephanie. wanted it by a third party, not the owner operator.
I think that's right. I believe that it was that, yes, that's correct. So we should, instead of the owner operator shall submit, it's a third party inspector.
So then I have a lot of questions of how that would work. Do you have to, is it the same inspector selected at the time the building permit is issued for the rest of the, well, is this forever, right? Post-construction for how long? And if it's selected after each rain event, how the heck are you gonna agree to one? Or so how's I just have a like, how do you agree to one and get the person out within 48 hours? Like,
Because they're on call. I mean, that's their job, is to monitor different sites.
but this is post-construction. There's no construction going on. The LGPI is operating.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, this particular paragraph is
This
specifically
paragraph is post-construction heavy rain event only. It doesn't say how long that these reports, how many years after construction they need reported on. And how, like, does the building, I've had this question about heavy rain events, who picks it? This one says if we modify it, direction of the building commissioner. So does he pick a new one after every heavy rain event? Does the town contract? Who pays? Like, I mean, it's paid for by the owner operator, but not selected by them. Who negotiates the cost? Like, I just have so many questions about this.
that is negotiated when the inspector, the third party inspector, is selected. And they'll just
By
say,
not the owner operator.
I'm
According
sure
to
there,
Stephanie.
I'm sure there's a normal operating range for salaries and, per diem or whatever and that's built into their surety. That's built into the costs that they cover.
So how long
So,
is this going on?
good question. Should we have a time frame of 5 years?
I mean, given what this report is asking to describe, is it logical? Well, I would just get rid of this report, but would it be logical to have it until vegetation is established? That could be a year, that could be, right? I mean, the goal here is stormwater ground control, make sure the sedimentation hasn't run off, which is during the grow back, I presumably. So once it's established within a year, you don't need this anymore, in theory.
In theory, but sometimes you get a flash flood and it overruns its banks, and that's probably, the worst case scenario.
Okay, but we don't ask for those reports to other places near flash flood areas.
So let's just make a note and say, period of time, question mark.
You know what? If we keep doing that, excuse me, if we keep doing that, Pam, we'll never get through this. I think we could make a decision here. Unless everyone is in disagreement. I think it's very heavy-handed. And I have no idea what we do with other kinds of installations. For example, the one that exists up here on the high side of Cherry Hill Golf Course. So I think this would be one, double check if Shutesbury has anything like this and what the reporting is the way I would do it. I mean, I think an annual report seems like a burden. Unless I certainly, think if we ever get to BESS, if we ever get to the batteries, we'd like them regularly looked at to make sure they're still operating safely. So again, I just would like to know that we're not imposing a regulatory burden that feels unreasonable for what we're looking for here.
Can I make a suggestion that we table this particular section? I would like some feedback from particularly Dave Zomek and Aaron Jacques, who have been sort of tracking the construction and installation of Hickory Ridge. Because I think they're the ones that are going to be receiving the reports. And let's just find out what it is that they actually need. The idea of going to Shutesbury and see what it's reporting, that's a great idea as well.
Okay, I'm fine with that. And just, Shutesbury was just, if it has reporting, it's been found to be reasonable, as was my point. You know, if it has no reporting, it won't be helpful, you know.
Right. Right. Can we skip to 12.02? This is for agrivoltaics. In there, it says, a report on the agricultural performance and crop yields. To me, that just is not necessary. But it does, if we took out that sentence and just said LGPI developer, applicant, or landlord shall submit to the PGA an annual report consistent with state DOER for qualified ASTGU for the first 5 years. Apparently DOER requires something like that. Can we just say consistent with? Andy, do you have your hand up?
I'm trying to figure out. Stephanie said, receive a copy of the report required by DOER for a qualified ASTGU. So I
Right.
think that's how we word it.
Right.
That submits a copy of the report. And this is owner operator, right? Not developer, applicant, or landowner. We're using owner or operator, right?
Does it matter who submits it?
Well, the developer is different than the applicant, that's different than the landowner. So do they all have to submit? You should really just say one person has to submit, one entity.
Suggest some wording. Great. Great. Good. The next item, 0.022, I question why we need that. It's already covered it's already covered up in 021.
And
Whatever DOER requires is already covered.
I'd be happy to delete.
The next section is modest, there's modifications. But I'm thinking about the transactions that happen at Hickory Ridge and just the fact that the developer is sort of coming back with little changes here and there. Can we do this and can we do that? It seems important to say if there are some substantive changes, That could be, well, we're going to move the location of the BES, or we're not going to build things in the order that we said we were going to build them in. Those to me are pretty substantial changes. I wouldn't mind adding the word, it says here shall require submission to and approval by the PGA and commissions, like Concom might be needed to be part of that, but I guess maybe the question is, does PGA include Concom?
So Stephanie recommends deleting it, and I support that recommendation.
Oh, that whole paragraph?
Yeah, her comment is already a requirement in other PGA review process. Delete this language would be included in a special permit condition.
Okay, if it is in fact included in permit condition. Anyone else disagree? Okay. We'll knock it.
So Stephanie recommends deleting 18.14.01.
So is there any other location? Just that 14.01, okay.
Well, I think there's other things she recommends deleting, but she says delete all of 14.01.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. We're not getting rid of section 18.14. We're just getting rid of that paragraph.
That paragraph, and then
Got-
there's some
got
other
it.
things.
Got it. Anyone have any concern about 14.02, the recommendation to delete failure to notify within 30 days shall be considered abandonment?
I support that deletion.
Yeah, I do too. The 14.03,
So, just this just says installation. Should this refer to LGPI? Just to
well,
keep things consistent. In O2.
well, installation covers LGPI and BES.
Okay.
Right?
As long as we've defined it somewhere to include them both.
We haven't defined the word installation.
So do we have to go back and add LGPI and BES to all these?
Well, we don't reference installation very often. We normally
Yeah.
say LGPI.
Yeah.
So it would be easier to just use LGPI there instead of putting a new word in and having to add it. Yeah.
Yeah. And while we're at it, I just want to make sure that if we should be including and BES in every single one of these paragraphs, we may need to go back and look at that specifically. I don't want to do it now.
Yeah, so sometimes we said and associated BES.
Yeah. Right. I feel like we should have some kind of umbrella statement saying, when we say LGPI, we also intend that it covers any associated
We
BES.
could just add that to the definition,
Oh, that might help, yeah.
maybe.
If not stated specifically, then it's implied.
We could look at it later though, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, great. The suggestion to get rid of this next 1.03, I was asking why we would want to get rid of it.
So if it's voided, that means the land use is completely illegal versus if there's just fines for not saying. That would be my guess. Like if you void a permit, then that LGPI on that property is completely illegal. And this is just a change in ownership here. I think you just would want to make sure there's fines if you don't notify the town of a change in ownership.
So would you rewrite it, Mandy, to say failure to provide notification shall carry a fine of X?
Right? So I think you could think about that in 14.02. I don't know how, I don't know how fines work for zoning bylaws.
Well,
You
we
know, we
had
just
some fun.
deleted that it is abandonment, but there might be able to be something that constitutes a fine or something. I just don't know how it works for zoning bylaws. Because it might just be a violation of the permit, and once you're violating the permit, you just get to tack on monetary violations, right? Because presumably some of this will be in the permit.
Well, that's a question to ask then. So we don't really have any equivalents. Large apartment buildings, if they change ownership, do they have to tell the town? They would never lose the permit altogether for the apartment building. But if you want to know who the owner is, or in
Well, if you
your
have to get a
rental,
rental permit every year, is that, I mean,
in the
Then you
rental,
find out who the owner is.
in
Yeah.
the rental permit, you have to say who the rental,
Right.
but it's, yeah, so I think it's, both of these feel more draconian than, just forgot to tell you that the owner changed, so you have to, timely, try to find out what would be, a carrot. A carrot or as well as a stick, I mean, it says you have to notify within 30 days. What happens if you don't, right? Jennifer, sorry, I'm just speaking
oh,
up.
yeah, no,
Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead.
no, I'm just asking, I mean, wouldn't that, or I'm asking if this is something that would be in the permit. I mean, is it pretty standard that if ownership change, you have to notify? I mean, the permit was given to the owner. Or is that true? Or was it given to the project?
So
Okay.
it's given to the landowner, which may not be the operator in this
operator.
case.
Mm,
Well, again, Hickory Ridge is installing and there is a operator on land. So does the operator, who do they notify? And what happens if they fail to notify? I think we just should ask this because it's, the new owner is the one you want to hold accountable for. That's the reason you want to know who the owner is, right? So if anything goes wrong with it, you don't want to have to go back and search.
So it sounds like owner and operator is not interchangeable, and that wording kind of implies it is.
Right.
let's make a note then, and then move on.
Are we leaning towards deleting like Stephanie recommended 03? I
Yeah,
added the question about what happens if you don't do 30 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would
'Cause
delete
there's-
it. I would delete it and then I think you're right, Mandy, that it naturally falls in 02 if there is, failure to notify shall, unless you want to make it a separate thought. So it's either a new 03 or it's combined in, because the original failure to notify would be, we take over the property. So that's really draconian.
Yeah, so if we changed 02 to say something like failure to notify within 30 days transfer, fines will be assessed or something, and I don't know if we can say that for now and then get building commissioner response to that.
I would just, failure to notify within 30 days shall blank, blank, blank. And we could just make it and figure out what we want to put there.
Yeah. Yeah. But it does reference the abandonment section of this bylaw.
No, she's taking it out. That's gone.
Yeah.
So Mandy is artfully putting in Kathy's blank, blank, blank.
Yep, and then the Jennifer's question of this one is transfer of ownership, but the failure to notify, but the rest of it refers to owner or operator.
Right.
Well, it's either, I mean, it could be a new owner, it could be a new landowner, it could be a new operator. So maybe having,
Well,
One-
it's Pam, it goes with the first sentence, a new owner or operator shall notify, and now it's failure to notify, transfer of ownership or operator. So it's parallel, the way the whole
Yeah,
paragraph.
it wasn't parallel before.
Yep. Got it. I can't read the small text.
So should the final paragraph, the new owner or operator must abide by? See the last sentence of 05?
Yep.
Okay.
Great. And now we actually get to the abandonment section. Taking out the town clerk, the
Oh,
PGA makes
I
sense.
had a question about the last sentence here. Any proposed changes to the project shall require approval as described in the modification section of this bylaw. I know we were going back, I think we skipped over modifications. Should it just be shall require approval of the PGA?
Yes.
I don't know whether we've gotten to modifications yet. I think we skipped over.
Yeah, I can't remember. Well, we had a little sentence in there and we took it out.
Oh, we
That
took
was
the
the one-
modifications out completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, if it is in fact a requirement, then hopefully it's still covered. Okay. Moving down to where, so we just said, let's see, we've taken out the owner or operator shall notify, we've taken out town clerk and PGA. That makes sense. That makes sense to me.
Okay, we're at abandonment.
Yep. So in 1501, removal requirements. So the only person being notified is the building commissioner. Anybody disagree with that?
No, I agree with it. So I would take the words out.
Can we accept that?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm trying to figure out this update on my Word that I got. Okay, so that's out.
Item C of that same of sections 15.02. The recommendation is the building commissioner rather than the PGA.
Oh, I had a question about 01. Sorry, I have to I
Okay,
have to
yep.
like deal with separate screens, and I'm not sure anyone can answer this one. Does removal require a permit? Because if it does, 150 days is probably too quick to not only get through the permitting process, but also actually physically remove.
I don't think it, I'm speaking just for my my own thoughts. the submittal at the very beginning, one of the submittals, I think, was the demolition and removal plan. So theoretically, it's all approved as a package when they give the permit. But that's a good question to ask. I would hope they would not need a permit to remove.
Since my memory and attention to this is not as great as it should be, do we have in the original part that they have to submit a plan for what they're going to do if they stop running it?
That's what Pam was just saying.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they do
So
too.
the question is, yeah,
So if we do, are we duplicating any of it with what is in 1815?
Okay, so here's what you have to submit. Site plan.
And so what I'm looking for, Mandy, if we originally asked them to say if they discontinue, this is what they have to submit, and I'm not seeing a
I
detail.
don't see it.
I don't either.
So
Yep.
Pam, so I don't think it's part of the original
Yep.
permit then.
That makes a lot more sense to me to have a basic decommissioning plan. Basic decommissioning plan. It could be fairly generic, but it doesn't feel like they,
Well,
you know,
it just, no, if we don't have it, I mean, if we want everything that is in this 1815, that's way too much to add to something that's already long at the beginning. But the beginning part should say, see section 1815 for what you're agreeing to on decommissioning. I mean, just should reference something that's coming, because we're saying that they're agreeing to do the following. They're agreeing to do the following at the point they got the original license to run the thing. But should they stop running it, they're agreeing to this. Isn't that how we've structured it that way?
yeah.
The current version.
It says right here, though, hold on, the owner or operator shall notify of the proposed date and plans for removal. It almost feels like that's where the plan for removal occurs rather than at the beginning.
Yeah, which makes sense because if these are there 20, 25 years, a plan 25 years in advance is worthless.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay with it being here as a plan for removal as part of the discontinued operations notification.
I think we leave it like this for now with just the question of whether there's a permit needed, because if a permit's needed, we just have to change the number of days, or it's not after date of discontinued operations, it's after permit for removal is issued or something. We just need to know.
So a removal shall consist of, do we need to say BES? Or if we try to do a more generic inclusion of BES as part of an LGPI installation?
There we go.
I'll put in there to remind us. Didn't have any problems down with C, the PGA recommending building commissioner. That seems good to me. Great. In this section E, there's a sentence that, so it says, any site that was deforested for the installation shall be restored and native tree growth to reestablish, including the planting of seedlings. A plan for restoration shall be submitted to the tree warden for recommendations and to the PGA for review and approval. To me, that a plan for approval sentence really ought to go up into 1804, which I think is I think that was in submittals.
Well, submittals, but again, you're 25 years
Yeah,
ahead when you're
you
submitting
can't- You can't
something.
move that way up there. It has, this is also a weird paragraph because it ends, if you're not really discontinuing, then you don't have to do anything. So that sentence doesn't belong there. I mean, if they're gonna reuse the site as a solar array, they don't have to plant the trees.
Right. Or if they're going
Right.
to do it an agricultural use, they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And Stephanie says, tie this into submittal requirements. I assume what she means by that is, and this is just a guess, native, native tree growth reestablished, I would think she might be referring to based on the plans, the submitted tree cover or whatever we have up at the top, right? One of the site plan submissions was characteristics of an extent of land cover type.
Yep.
So I assume that's what she's referencing there of
Yeah, so the question is, do we take that sentence, a plan for restoration? I mean, that it says shall be submitted. That to me sounds very much like a submittal. And your comment about, well, we don't really need to do that 25 years in advance. It sort of puts something on the table, at least for the target to be met. There we go. External line. Great.
I'm just making stuff up here. So the plan for restoration can go up here and plans for removal and restoration of site.
Yep. Great.
Okay, Mandy, remove the last sentence of that. This requirement may be waived. It doesn't fit here. If they're not.
But where are we putting it?
It's already up above. I mean,
I don't see it somewhere else.
there was okay, maybe. Okay, D says, this requirement may be waived at the PGA by the building commissioner if the landowner submits a plan for reuse of the site as a solar array. That's D. Okay, so we've just said you're not required to remove anything if you're going to keep operating it. So reforesting.
So why do you have to say that sentence again? That
So
statement
if you're
again?
reforesting it, you're not removing it. I mean, you are removing, so I would move, see D, I would move D. I would move E before D. Okay, so the rework D says you've got to reforest it. And then the final sentence there should be, these requirements may be waived if the landowner submits a plan for reuse.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, that's the concluding, if you're
Yeah.
not removing it.
Yep.
So I'm just making, yeah, so you're replanting it if you're removing it. And then you can say these requirements.
Yep.
Do you see what, and the structure is, you know, if you're going to continue to, someone else is going to continue to operate it. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad to see you do that, Mandy. I do that all the time. And it's then by the building commissioner also.
Yep.
By the building commissioner. So 1503, I like it a lot. I'm not sure the wording is perfect, but my question is, you absolutely need a surety. You need a financial, you know, otherwise the town is going to bear the cost of removing it.
So I think Stephanie changes every PGA to
Building commissioner.
building commissioner.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I jumped to 1503, but yeah, so all the PGAs become building commissioner.
And I had a question about um um some of the wordings of installation
Yeah.
versus LGPI versus, I think one place used solar energy system, but maybe that's not there anymore. Yeah, there's a solar energy system.
Oh,
That's where I think it should reference the solar SPI, solar photovoltaic installation. That like, where
then
does
we need to add that to the definitions, right?
well, no, the definitions have that in there. That's why let me find the definitions. So we use solar photovoltaic array and solar photovoltaic installation. And I think the SPI is what we want to use.
But does that include the BESS?
Well, we could say SPI and associated BESS.
Can we say SPI includes associated BESS?
No, because it won't always have a BESS.
And any associated BESS?
So Mandy, you're literally going to put SPI at the end. So, okay. I don't mind writing out whole words when it's 5 pages later and I have to go find out what an SPI is. Sorry.
My guess is that term is known by solar installers, that it's not,
Okay, that's
like,
fine.
that it's a standard abbreviate. That's my guess.
And I think that's why whoever wrote this draft originally had solar energy installation. They just felt everyone would know what that is rather than a PBI.
So Stephanie says the May financial surety is not bylaw language, and then we've got a new financial surety section.
Yes.
So
I've lost my place. Where are we?
Was she questioning the may and wanting to make it shall?
Well, I think she just said it's not bylaw language because shall would be, but you don't have to, right? I think we should look at the financial surety section because we might be able to delete this whole sentence depending on what
Yeah.
financial surety says.
Well, if it says that, if it includes this, I mean, you don't want to leave the town on the hook for removing this stuff. So you want to make sure the financial security. So I'd be happy with changing the word to shall if we have financial security.
I don't think we need to say it because I mean, in the sentence, it says as stipulated in the financial surety section, so I don't think we need to repeat it.
Where do you see? Okay, wait a minute, I missed that.
The very last sentence in 15.03.
No,
It's
but
just,
she's taking out the whole, if we take out the whole sentence, that goes away.
right.
Why would you not say the town shall use the financial security as stipulated? Why wouldn't you just say shall? Change the may to shall.
I just assumed that we would cover it into this, the surety
So
section
here's the
itself.
new surety language from Rob.
Okay, it definitely includes it.
It's held by the town of Amherst to cover the cost of removal, da, da, da.
Yeah, so it definitely includes removal, so I'm not sure we need the sentence above.
Okay,
I agree, that last
yeah, we
thing.
don't, if, especially if this is the next thing that happens, if 1816
Right.
follows it, I'm happy.
Right. Right. There's now the topic of the town retains the right to enter and remove a system is
Where is that?
there- it's in the middle of 15.03. It's right after 150 days. The town retains the right to enter and remove an abandoned hazardous decommissioned LGPI. So in that sentence, we could just say decommissioned LGPI instead of spelling it all out. For one thing. And associated BES. In the old surety section, the very last sentence in that was as a condition of approval, an applicant shall bind itself to grant the necessary license or easement to the town to allow entry to remove the structures and stabilize the site. The town shall have the right but not the obligation to remove the facility. That feels like it wants to go up under the abandonment section. Since in fact, Rob is suggesting that we shrink the surety. Yeah. And I don't know if a condition of approval means anything, but it's the
So these
This,
three sentences now are very similar.
yeah.
We should pick one.
Maybe the one that follows the new associated BES could go.
But what Mandy's saying is the first one, the town retains the right to enter.
Oh, I see that.
And
Yeah,
the last one says the applicant has to give the town the right to enter. If we say the town retains it, we don't need the last sentence.
that's yep. That's good. Yep, that one can go. Right. So as a condition of site plan approval or special permit, the applicant shall agree to allow entry. Sounds like we don't need that
So-
one either.
Well, that's the same as the one we just deleted here.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah.
Those two are the same. They're just differently worded. I actually kind of like the one we deleted better than,
Well,
Yep.
this is written in a way that you would see this 3 times, so you probably would know.
We only want to say it once. We only want to say it once.
yeah, so I would delete this one.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's more
So-
legal. You like it, Mandy, because it's more legalistic. Shall bind,
Yeah.
bind itself to grant. It's much stronger wording.
Right.
Great, good. And we'll get rid of the other sentences. Financial surety, I feel good with what was provided by Rob Mora.
Yep.
The only thing I thought I might add to Rob's section, if we could take a very quick look at that.
Yeah.
It's the almost next to the last sentence, project applicant shall submit a fully inclusive cost associated with removal, and I said removal and restoration. I'd like to add the words and restoration.
Mm.
Anyone want any other changes in section 1816?
Nope. Just a time check. We've got
Yep,
Nate.
I'm exactly what I was gonna say. I think
we've got
this is
Nate in
where
the
we,
wings, and it's after
Yeah,
just.
yep, thank you for the reminder. We are
Oh,
ending,
but I think the next one's Stephanie recommends deleting all of them or most of them.
Severability.
Severability, she recommends deleting, and
Okay,
appeals, she recommends deleting.
that'd be fine with me.
I was okay with that.
And payment in lieu of taxes,
She says we
she
don't do anymore.
recommends deleting too,
We don't do it anymore.
because they don't do it anymore.
Okay, folks.
So 17, 18, and 19 go.
Go. And that takes us to the end.
Amen.
But we still have those sections we skipped at in the middle,
Yes.
but
Yes, yep. So we will make note of where we pick up next time. Pick up at
So Mandy, did you just do a red strike through or a strike through?
this is all strike through. I'll clean it up and send a version
Okay.
18 out or 16 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah, I'll clean it up.
Okay.
Great. Great, thank you. Appreciate it, Jennifer.
So what is the timing for having this hopefully approved by the council before the end of this council session? So if we
Well-
approve it, if we recommend it at the next, can't happen?
So I'm at question, are we an hour away from getting through with this, or are we 4 meetings away from?
We
getting
haven't
through?
even done a second run through of this.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking, that I'm
Yeah.
just looking at such scrolled over, there's all sorts of comments bubbles all over the place.
Personally,
Right.
I think the goal would be potentially it's possible to maybe send something to the new council mostly complete.
Yeah.
It depends on
agree.
DOR and the new regulations from the state law for local permitting, but we might be able to send something complete pending those permitting regulations.
So if we send something to council it will be a referral to CRC for public hearings.
Potentially. And the planning board, because they both have to, but I think it depends on what the DOR is doing with its new, with the new, what they call small scale solar, which is the municipal covered solar versus the state regulations now.
So
We're still
Pam,
waiting, I think, on those regulations.
what I
Yeah.
recommend, Pam, is look at how many meetings we have left for the end of the year.
Yes.
And send us get through these sections in the following
Yep,
section.
I'd be happy to do that. Yep.
And if Mandy remembers, do you remember the agonizing process we went through with the rules of procedure?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where to take control of it, we just said, we will get through these. And we had a timeline of, with a goal to get to a decent draft. We weren't going to get it over the hump because it still had to go further. But if you just look at the meetings and say, we've got 2 hour meetings.
I will lay it out. I will lay it out by meeting and
Thanks.
recognize that we're going to try to split our time each week with solar and whatever else is on the plate.
Okay.
So that said, thank you, everybody. Just a quick review forward. It's just about 4, a little after 4, and Nate's been patiently waiting. So we are going to transition to the housing production plan. Just for everyone's notice, there are no meeting minutes. And I want to reserve time if we can at the end of the meeting for carryover items, but I know we're actually targeting a closure of about 4:45 so that Kathy can go to the meeting in person. So Nate, thank you for,
I'll
we
bring
were
them
only
up.
6 minutes behind.
Let me.
And Nate, thank you for being there. Some of the broader questions for the housing production plan, Nate, are just in terms of overall process. What if there are amendments and additions, and what is the overall timeline that you're looking at? So that's sort of what I'm trying to grapple with here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nate Malloy. I think the
Can we see Nate?
Well, only if he turns his camera on.
no,
Oh,
I'm in the audience. I'm not a panelist right now, so I'd
Well,
have to be brought over as a.
I promoted you to panelist. Well, let me try that again. Oh, dear.
Can I also ask with process, do we adopt it, recommend it, the council adopt it? I'm still not totally clear on that.
So Mandy, I
Yeah.
brought him in, I thought as panelist, but if I bring him in just with allowed to talk, do I have to take him out again and then bring him back in?
Yeah, you have to say promote to panelist.
I know, but I don't know whether I can do it now.
yeah.
You should be able to.
I'm trying. My little arrow won't go on the 2 little bubbles above her.
I'll try it myself. I'll promote to
Thank
panelist. It's working here. And
Yeah,
also
I
Greg
see it.
Rashane. There we go. That should work. Yay.
Thanks, hi, everyone.
And Greg, hold on.
You might, yeah. All right. Oh, yeah, he's here.
I promoted you also. There he is.
Yeah, I think to answer the questions, the the CRC would recommend action by the council, whether that's on the plan, and the motion is to adopt the plan as the town's housing affordable housing plan. And so that step is necessary to then send it to the state to have them approve the plan, saying that it meets the the structure and framework for a housing production plan. And so the state's review of it is just to make sure that it has all the right components. I don't think they necessarily look at the details. It's really just to see that it it meets the required formatting and has the necessary elements in it. And so, yeah, for process, I mean, we'd love to get the council to vote before the end of the year, right, on this plan. And so, thanks for the comments. I mean, so I guess, to me, like a lot of the comments are discussions we'd have after the plan has already been adopted. So, for instance, if we don't like the idea of building more housing for students off campus, I'm not going to recommend to the, I don't think the the plan should change and say that, because that's what the, for instance, the consultants thought was a strategy. We don't have to then follow through with it. So I'm not envisioning that we're going to follow through with every strategy in the plan or and meet everything. It's, I think there's a lot in there, and I think the town afterward would work with with you, the council, the housing trust, the planning board, and staff to determine, okay, what are the priorities and how do we approach this? If there's some points that we want to have clarified, the consultants said that they would be willing to look at the plan and look at the comments. They couldn't make it today, just given the notice, but they, we have spoken with Judy and her team, and they're willing to make some changes. They did look at the comments previously in June, and so I think they saw some, and then staff met with them and said, okay, are these comments enough to actually change the plan, or are they things that are part of the discussion after the plan? So like, I think, the question about the number of off-campus students, the census isn't as accurate. UMass reports it different ways. I don't think we're actually going to get like the right number for off-campus students. If we think that the numbers, in the comments, it seems like, oh, well, if you take one approach and add numbers up, we get here. If we go somewhere else, we get here. And so maybe to me, the recommendation might be there has to be some a bit more qualifying language, say, in that part of the report about, the way the numbers are derived. It's difficult to get the most accurate number, right? Or something, just, and so, is it that it's wrong, or is it just that I think the reporting of students is really a tricky thing. And if, for instance, like the density in residential zones, they don't tell us what the density is. They might say infill. And to me, the conversation is, if the plan's adopted, well, what is the right density? What do they mean by that? And so that's where there's the conversations afterward to say, okay, well, we think, in these districts, we like these ideas, and we think this is what the appropriate density is for Amherst. And so the plan doesn't get into some of those, those critical details. They're just saying, overall, here's, let's look at infill. And I think it's then on the town locally to say, what does that mean for us?
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna just let me call on Jennifer and Kathy first, and then
Sure,
back
yeah,
to you, Nate. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know where to begin. So if this plan is an affordable housing plan that we need to submit to the state, it addresses a lot more than affordable housing. And to vote for a plan, one of the main takeaways is they want us to encourage more off-campus student housing. We know that will happen. We don't need to encourage it. That's the low-hanging fruit. And for the council to adopt a plan that says we encourage the building of more off-campus student housing, that will be pointed to as we adopted it. So to adopt it, it's like signing a legal document and then say, well, we'll change some of the requirements after. I don't feel comfortable with that. And why doesn't the plan just talk about affordable housing? So we were a housing choice community, because I think we built 482 units. Most of those units were probably not affordable. They were for student housing, which by definition is high priced because it's based on unrelated people sharing the rent. It's not priced for families. So, I submitted comments before June 1st when we were asked to submit comments. And then I was told in correspondence after that, well, as you just said, most of the comments weren't incorporated. So it feels like this now is our only chance and it may be too late to have them incorporated, but I fully support all the affordable housing goals, but as articulated as strongly as the affordable housing goals is to build more off-campus student housing. And then it gets, frankly, which I said in my comments, a little condescending. I think they took out the word NIMBY. That might have been one change that they made. But to say we need to change, what is it, our attitude around or perception of student housing, that's not the issue. I mean, the issue is our year-round population, our non-student population is plummeting. New student housing will be built because it's the most profitable housing to build. We don't need to encourage that. And again, I don't know why it's in an affordable housing plan. And I would have wanted to see more incentives for, if we're going to upzone, it should not be, it should be, I don't know how we do that, if it's owner occupancy requirement, even if you're building, multifamily housing, but there's nothing in this plan that is going to ensure we build more off-campus student housing. And there's many parts of the plan I do support, but I can't vote to approve a plan that is actively encouraging, saying we need to go out and encourage the building more student housing when we don't have to do that. It's going to come our way anyway. So I'm just, I feel very uncomfortable with, well, we can approve it and then sort of negotiate it after. That doesn't feel comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Kathy.
Well, I sent Nate, I sent you some comments in advance, and as I said, I didn't see my role when the piece was in motion as weighing in, because I thought I would have a chance now. So I have a set of issues on the actual presentation before they get to the strategies. And then I share Jennifer's concerns about the strategies. And that to me is the two parts of the report. I loved a lot of the information they pulled together. I think they did an excellent job doing that. But I didn't share these with the rest of you because I don't think I'm supposed to. But when you read the report, one of the things that jump out at you are these bubbles. I call them somebody said something. This, as far as I can tell, was in a very small survey. Some people said this, and it makes it look like a finding that people are moving out of town because of the costs or whatever. And I would just remove all the bubbles. Because when I looked at what the survey was, it was very small. Only some people, it wasn't random, and it's non-representative. So I would just stick to the data tables. I would just get rid of them. It makes it it's a stylistic thing. It's not clear to me that there was a lot of effort to look at the predictions of population growth over the next 5 years for the region, for the whole region. To me, you have a shortage if there are more people living where you are than houses. If the population is not growing very fast, it's not clear to me you have, quote, a shortage. You do have a quarter of affordable. I'm seeing a lot of vacancies right now, including the new buildings. The new buildings down on Schnell has vacancies. Some of the buildings downtown have vacancy notices, and we're in high season for students. So I think what we're seeing is that the rents went to a level, and I don't know whether the new university housing on University Drive, but at the close of last year, they had vacancies. So I don't know exactly what the status is, but I'd like to see a better job on just population growth for the region, on how we compute. On the numbers, you just addressed the number of UMass students, but I don't think we have a projection of whether UMass is planning on growing or not. And from what I can see is they may not grow, they may even shrink to move more courses online. It's more profitable for them. And so what happens if it goes the other way? And so a little bit more talking about, it may not grow. It has been growing, but it may go the other direction. So the new growth, my fourth point was this: we've got vacancies around town, that we have been building. Amherst has been building a lot. So it may be just that we're hitting kind of a ceiling on what the market will bear. Then I thought they would at some point start with our master plan and talk about densities in the center. What is a village center? Start saying we haven't ever delineated what a village center is. That discussion is not there. And you said that, talking about what kind of density we're talking about, we seem to point to, like, Cushman has a market in it, or there is the Atkins market, and somehow there's the village center. How is it a radius around here? And should we be focusing on those areas because they're near to transportation hubs? Where would be the focus of if we were going to talk about changes? Missing middle. There's a discussion of, this is missing middle housing sizes. The counting was very odd. The picture shows condos, townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, but then the count doesn't count all of those. And I'm not sure they counted Puffton Village. So it's a question to ask them, Nate, because Puffton Village is clusters of 2 and 3 units, the kind of triplexes you were looking for, Mandy. They're all over Puffton Village, 3 apartments, and then there's green space around them, and it houses 1,100 people. So it's not an insignificant group of middle. So I just didn't know how when they counted, did Puffton come up? Did the townhouses come up as townhouses?
Mhm.
So it's a question. In the groups, in terms of feedback from groups, in the groups I attended, there was a strong preference for redoing, converting existing, for cluster and cottage village or PERD type developments. And I was hoping, because I went to an early session with them, I was hoping we would get a map that would say how much land is available in Amherst that's not wetlands, where such developments could occur. Just a map that said removing conservation land, APR land, wetlands. How much land do we have that doesn't have anything on it? And so then the other one I heard quite a bit of discussion on, and it's use of town property. So I went to the Southeast School thing, and everyone liked that potentially for senior housing. There's a discussion of Wildwood comes online. So just a little bit more on the town has an opportunity. Senior housing, if we had more, could free up other housing for families, because seniors could move out of their house and into senior housing. And that was discussed in at least 2 of the meetings I went to, and those preferences, which ones we liked. Then affordable. So Jennifer mentions the word affordable. I have to go read it real carefully. As far as I can see, as soon as we get new construction, whether it's a single family home or an apartment building, it's expensive. That new doesn't come in. So the only way the price tag on that becomes affordable is if we're bringing in the state subsidies and town subsidies to it. That new, I was looking at the duplexes up in Sunderland and what they're selling for. Each half of them was really expensive. And so if we're talking about affordable, we have to talk about construction, which is a combination. The cost of construction is way up, and the state building code and the Amherst building code is really tough. So we're asking for a lot more in a building than we used to. So if there any evidence that we've got some trend, I just saw, probably all of you read the same news. Somebody's figured out a way to build a house out of a 3D printer. Literally, they print a house out of liquid cement or some other kind of thing and lowers the cost of construction. I don't know whether there's any kind of innovation on it. So then I'm rattling off, and I did all of this with the land maps. I got really excited by the maps when I first saw them, and I was hoping they would overlay them with how much is left that's not built on, and where is it when we look around. Unless we're talking about rezoning all of South Amherst and the RO areas to not have the same lot sizes. Unless we're talking about, and even some of those lots, when you get up here, some of the properties look like they have a lot of land, but it is full of water, where the house isn't is water. So a little bit more. And then the final numbers, how much we need to build, Nate, and what our goals are. I think we're in a region. We're not just Amherst. So does Amherst need to build all of it? So I'd like that at least raised as a question in the report. I'm also looking at even our schooling systems. We've got lots of little tiny schools around the edge of us, but we've got a bunch of abutting neighborhoods where our workforce lives, because it's a shorter distance to downtown than where I live to downtown or to South Amherst. So talking a little bit about the region, and some of this is what the state wants in a production code, in a production plan, but we've been doing really well with our production. So it's what's a vision of where we want to go and how much does Amherst has to build as opposed to region. So I sent you all those, and what I don't know what would be helpful is, do you want me to go through page numbers and then get to the strategy side? Because then I'd like to have a full CRC session to go through all the strategies that were listed, because as far as I could see, every possible strategy was listed rather than let's talk about some that seem to fit the Amherst master plan the best. And I know Mandy's going to weigh on those, but on some, I just wanted the original text to be tighter, tighter with stick to the data as they found it, where they have, as you said, we got 2 data sources, but we don't have a really good number on this stuff. That's fine. So that people wouldn't have the impression that we're not doing something. I think Amherst has more of this middle than any of the surrounding
Mhm.
region. We're, and some of it might have been, they said used to build a lot, but not much. I looked at the 2 rates. They were within a tiny percentage point of each other. It wasn't that we used to build them and now we don't build them. So they were exaggerating some numbers. And I'd be happy to do it by page numbers, but I thought this would just be an easier dump than writing an extended piece. So that mine, and I should have done what Jennifer did and got you these in June, but I didn't because I didn't. No, because I didn't think I was supposed to weigh in with a strong opinion.
It's okay, nothing was incorporated.
What?
Right.
No.
It's
So
It didn't count.
and
So
now I did
Kathy,
say,
thank you. Yeah.
so I just want to say to everyone, I wrote these and I sent them to Nate, but I couldn't share them with you. These are literally what I sent to him.
You're
So-
free to share them now.
Okay.
And Nate, I'm going to go to Nate and then Counselor Haneke. Thanks. Any general responses by Nate or Rick or Greg?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I think that, there are some things they didn't look at, typically in a housing production plan, you won't look at the region, because it's focused on Amherst. So some of the points, I really think some of the questions are really about, what do we do with this plan, say, if after it's adopted? So, yeah, they included a lot of strategies, but I'm not going to say, well, let's take away half the strategies because maybe some other groups think it's a really good idea. Maybe the housing trust is like, we actually like some of these financing things that are really difficult, but we'll try to tackle them. And so, this was the consultants' work saying, here's what they think and what they recommend as strategies. So I'm not, we can go back to them and ask, but to me, it's like, well, like I said, the plan doesn't obligate the town to do everything, but I think it offers, a lot of ideas that then we get to decide on. And so we're not asking them to delineate village centers. If we think that, from this plan, we're like, wow, from the master plan, from, the work of the planning board and others, we're like, okay, we do need to work on our village centers. That's not in this plan. That's what we do after.
But Nate, I don't understand why that wouldn't be a recommendation of theirs. I mean, I'm just saying that.
But that's not really that's not the scope of what a housing production plan is. And so we're not asking them to say, delineate your village centers. So to me, that's something we would do as a result of this plan, right? So if they're talking about infill of missing middle of different housing types, now we're equipped to say, okay, let's have this conversation. What is the outline? What is the North Amherst Village Center? What is East Amherst? And so the planning board is already starting to have those conversations to talk about different zoning ideas. But to me, that's typically not part of a housing production plan, right? And so that, yeah, I mean, I don't want to defend all the, I don't want to have a rebuttal I mean, I think, yeah, there's some things we could ask for changes. I think, to me, I will say though, the student piece and, say seniors, it's interesting because you can't, typically you're not zoning for ownership or user type. And so you can have affordable senior housing, but just saying we'll build for senior housing, most of the seniors in Amherst don't qualify for lower and moderate income. And so to me, if the strategy is a build more senior housing, part of it would be, well, then to free up the homes they're in so that maybe you can get, some mobility in the housing and you're getting people moving in and backfilling the housing, the units they're in now. So just saying senior housing to me means, well, if it's part of the strategy would be, well, is it affordable senior housing or not? And to me, building student housing is important. So whether or not we want to put it all in Amherst, I think we know that it drives the market. And so I'd rather say, well, where do we want to put students and have a, discussion about that, because maybe we can relieve pressure for the other types of housing we want. And, I think we have to involve Hadley in the region. It's housing's a bubble, big bubble, right, for our region. But I think that, to me, they're not saying, well, build student housing, precluding anything else. I think it's good to say that, right? And so now we have the conversation of, well, where do we want it to be built? I think the,
I'm
you know,
I'm
yeah.
gonna hold you there and then go to Counselor Haneke. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to thank the consultants for producing this draft housing production plan. It is sobering to see how many of our residents, non-student and student residents together, are house burdened, cost burdened, severely cost burdened and cost burdened. And this is a plan that says if we want to reduce those cost burdens, here are some potential ways to do so. I don't like them all, but I like a lot of them, right? But it gives us, from a neutral party that is a expert in housing and producing housing and how to reduce the costs of housing, to say to us, hey, here's what you can do. So I want to thank them for it. The question I have for Nate is sort of more of a conceptual, it's not really conceptual. It's my understanding that the planning board has approved this, adopted it. So I'm curious what the discussion at the planning board was for those that don't necessarily agree with the strategies, and what the vote at the planning board was, because I assume, knowing the planning board members, that not everyone agrees with all of these strategies. And so if they got, and I don't know whether they got to a unanimous vote, but if they got to a unanimous vote, can you summarize or give us some information as to what people that might not have agreed with all these strategies said, and potentially indicated why they would still vote to approve the plan?
Let's go to Nate and answer that. And actually, one of the people that might have had issue with some of the strategies got voted off and was not returned for a second term.
Yeah,
Nate.
the planning board looked at the plan a few times, so they we brought the needs assessment to them, and then maybe a draft. Maybe they saw it 2 or 3 times. Yeah, they questioned kind of like what, some of them said, do we even need this plan? We're above 10%, they're kind of asking kind of generically, like, well, how does this guide us? Same thing, they might not like all the strategies or what they're saying. A few planning board members really felt that their role was, there's a few land use strategies that the board was more kind of relevant to. And so they, for instance, a lot of the financial strategies or certain things, they said, well, they felt it was outside of their kind of their purview in a respect because they don't influence that part of it. So they, some of them felt that, well, let's just keep our focus to what we could control and what kind of recommendations would be good for us. And so I forget the vote, but there was a few, there was a discussion over a few meetings,
not-
and I think there was, not everyone liked everything in the plan, but I think they liked it as a general framework. And so I think for them, they understood that, if they didn't think a strategy was worth pursuing, they just wouldn't pursue it. Or it's a kind of a local decision to say, well, what does missing middle mean, right? Or what does cottage style development mean? And what's the right density for different zoning districts? And so, from that and from discussions they've had in the last year, they've said, well, they like the idea of cottage style development, for instance, and some of it now is researching, what does that mean? Is it really small lots? Is it a per unit, is it a per unit per acre formula? Is it a floor area ratio? Is it design guidelines? What is it? And so they kind of understood that as a kind of a general framework, it's okay. It's not obligating us, the town, to anything. So they felt comfortable with that. They thought the targets were kind of high. But they said it's good to have a goal, right? I mean, knowing that it takes so long to build housing, especially affordable housing, so the idea is that this plan, the state just came up with this number. It's been in the regulations for a long time that a half of 1% is your target. It's not based on need. So if you had 10,000 housing units, half of 1%. And so what the plan tried to get at was, based on the needs assessment, here's where there's gaps based on demographics and income levels. And so, the idea is that it could be much bigger or smaller than this half of 1%. The half of 1% is kind of like just, some rubric that, right, the state came up with. So that, I think the planning board understood that if we don't reach it, we're not wrong, right? It's not like we're doing bad. We're still going to try to move move the needle a little bit. I think they like the ideas that identify different demographics and housing types. And to me, it's like the start of a conversation. Like, okay, if we want to have, say, more senior housing, what does that mean? How do we get there? If we want to have certain kinds of infill, what does that mean? Do we look at our apartment and townhouse definition in our bylaw? Because it's like a one size fits all, and in most it's by special permit in most zoning districts. So do we have to, investigate that? So I think, you know, I get it. They ask questions about the off-campus piece, but they kind of reason that it's a really difficult number to pin down. We know it's really big. Can we work with it? So I think they take an approach that if they didn't agree with something, it wasn't enough to say no to the plan. It's just that maybe it'd be a future discussion of how to address it.
Let's go to Greg. Thank you. Thank you, Nate.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for your feedback. I apologize. I'm joining from the car because I'm usually off at this point. But yeah, I wanted to highlight a few things in response to Councilmember Schoen's questions and comments. Nate mentioned the sort of the town center or the village center concept around like the plan recommends increasing density or upzoning, and then leaves it to us to say, okay, where should that happen? So I reiterating that. Regarding affordability of new construction and the relationship to derestriction versus open market stuff, it's absolutely correct that brand new non-capital A affordable homes tend to be more expensive than older stuff. That's true worldwide, basically. But there's an increasing amount of really good research around filtering and around the sort of occupancy chains, tenancy chains, where if we add a high-end fairly expensive apartment, it hasn't been documented in Amherst, but lots of parts of the country, there's lots of examples of there's an occupancy chain that happens that when we add a higher end apartment, then somebody moves in there and they don't move into the slightly more affordable apartment. They in turn don't move into the slightly more affordable apartment, and so on. So really what that means is where, by adding student housing that's new, the idea would be relieving pressure on existing homes, especially single family homes, which, many have observed are getting are getting used by students as rentals. And the other thing I wanted to say regarding the regarding ideas around bringing costs down of new stuff, and also kind of relates to regional leadership. This is kind of a specific idea, but I think it gets into how some of the stuff is in the weeds that's there. But one thing in there is doing pre-approved plans. So one potential path towards that might be, for example, coming up with a couple cool duplex designs, and having the building department and the planning board really get into those, find a way to approve them broadly, so that and then make the plans available for free. So that could bring costs down on the building side, not on the demand side, but over time, what that might do is make marginal development more viable where before it was not. It could fill a gap for somebody and get more units in the pipeline. And it also, to the regional point, there's no reason that if we pre-approve a few really good designs, they couldn't be exported to other communities around the region as well. So just kind of a bit more in the weeds there, but kind of what we're thinking as far as ways to bring the cost of missing middle down and also sort of play a regional leadership role as well. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Let's see, Kathy, you've had your hand up, and then Jennifer. I just want to note that we've got about 10 minutes before we want to close.
Yeah,
and
I think what I'll do is what I've been putting off since early July is writing up my page by page comments. So Mandy, when you said cost burden, we show up in North Amherst as cost burden, and it's because we have all these students up here, and their income gets counted, their family's income doesn't get counted. So we pull the whole average down because we've got all these student apartments. And we are targeted, we got state, it helps us. So we got state money for the new housing that's being put in because we're one of these targeted census tracts. But if you pulled our students out, we would look more like Pelham and the surrounding area. So we're not an outlier. There's some statements in here, and I just have to come back, Greg, that I think in the very executive summary, and I'll go page by page, that exaggerate some of the findings. So I understand it's a housing production plan, but we have produced a huge amount of housing in the last 5 to 6 years, much more so than the surrounding regions. So to say we've lagged behind for decades, which isn't an opening sentence, is overblown. So I think what I'll do is I'll just give you page by page comments with flagged. And then I very much like what Greg was just saying. Yes, if there are some innovations where the actual price tag was lower, but I think the affordability issue is the stuff that's coming on the market is not taking, for student, back to you, Nate, and I know we're talking about the overlay too, the student housing that's the preferred housing right now are gobbling up all these small buildings, houses, because they are cheaper than the big buildings that are being built. It's not taking pressure off of the neighborhoods at all. It's not taking. And so one of the fears up in Puffton Village, Brandywine, townhouses, these are the older apartment buildings. They have among the lowest student rents of any of the buildings in town. They didn't follow the market the way some of the older buildings did. So they are the preferred places for affordability for students. So I want to go back to Jennifer's. I don't think our goal, town's goal, needs to be the students. That should be pushed right back on UMass. UMass, if it's growing, but it should be absorbing more on campus. They chose to build the new family housing, just 2 floors. They didn't build it bigger. They could have built more. There was a lot of land they could have filled in on their own property. So I think coming back to some of the strongest recommendations, and then I'm going to go through the facts. I'm okay with a laundry list at the end, but I don't think a consultant should editorialize if there is a pattern that is somewhat different when you take a hard look at the data. So I'm just going to try to be really careful to flag those. I don't think they probably meant to do it, and it makes for a much more exciting report to read when you hear fallen behind for decades. But if we didn't fall behind for decades, or we're exceeding the growth of all the surrounding towns, we should be making those statements. So I will do what I should have done a while ago.
Yep. That would be great. And I think at this point, if that material is sent to me or to Nate, copy me, I will put it in our packet as comments. Jennifer, and then Greg's got his hand up. So Jennifer,
I just need to respond. Since I've lived here for 14 years, there have been thousands of beds added off campus. As Kathy just said, it has not relieved the pressure on single family houses. I mean, that's just it. And that narrative keeps being put out there, and it's just not the case. This housing production plan talks about thousands of UMass students living off campus, not in Amherst, that they suggest that we build so they can live in Amherst. This is so far trickle down housing. I mean, we can keep building houses for these thousands of students, housing units to live here. And that's not going to, it's going to be a long time before there's enough units in multifamily housing that is expensive to house all the students that the housing production plan says want to be living here and are living off campus, not in Amherst, before it's going to impact single family homes, and investors are no longer going to be purchasing single family homes to rent to students. I mean, at some point it kind of sounds good on the surface, but it's not an accurate or authentic narrative. And I even found, and again, back to editorializing, I mean, I think there's a lot of excellent, for the consultants, a lot of excellent research and excellent statistics, and I support all their encouragement and their recommendation that we try and find funding for affordable housing, because they acknowledge it's not coming through the private sector. It's going to be publicly funded we need to bring in public funds and nonprofit organization funds to build affordable housing. But when they say, well, we need to be more welcoming of the students so they'll stay here after they graduate, I mean, that's like, really? If you want, we're a very tiny town. The students are not leaving because they don't feel welcomed. If you want to go into advertising, communications, media, you want to work for a law firm, you want to go into business, there's a whole range of, professional sectors. If you want to get jobs in those sectors, when you graduate, you have to leave the Pioneer Valley. So there's comments like that that I think are not helpful and not accurate. But I will do what Kathy did and go back through more page by page.
And I just have to say, I'm leaving right now, not because
Yes.
I love this conversation, but I have to be somewhere in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So thanks, everyone.
So that's
Thank you, Kathy.
That's my rant.
Okay, thank you. And the rest of us also need to attend that meeting. So Nate, you want some final words, and then I'm going to wrap it up and just go to next agenda preview.
Yeah, no, Jennifer, I agree with you that the scale and, the issue with the students is really big, and it's hard to say, well, how do we build our way out of it? And I think the planning board, that's why they looked at University Drive. That's why they're looking at overlays. I think they really are concerned about the loss of non-student households and what's happening with, different, single family homes and the conversion to student rentals and what's happening elsewhere. And so I think, the Housing and Zoning Subcommittee, they've talked about, well, what are some longer term approaches and what are some immediate things that the town could do? And it's really difficult to have, whether it's policies, regulations, or bylaws in place to, prevent those conversions, right? There's some, there's communities that have done minimum distancing or whatever. And so the Housing and Zoning Subcommittee is kind of, has been talking about this. And so I think they're trying to look at it from a few different perspectives, longer term, more immediate, and how do we approach it? So I agree. I think it's a really big issue. And so to me, send us your comments on the plan. I think what I like about it is it's starting a conversation, and it's something that we can try to work through. So what are some strategies to address this? And so, if the plan doesn't have the strategies in there, we still can investigate it, right? I mean, it's not an exhaustive plan. And so it's what the consultants put forward. And like I said, if we really think some things really need to be changed so you can recommend it to council, sure, we can provide that feedback. But to me, it's like, if we come up with other ideas that are in there, I think, and we think they're worthwhile, I'd still pursue them. It's not like we're beholden to this plan. I think to me, it's getting us talking about things and finding solutions, but that's
Thank you, Nate.
yeah.
Yeah. So if we have specific comments and questions, we could send them to Nate and Greg. I didn't say anything because we ran out of time, but I also have comments. If we're in the clear, I think I'm going to wrap up that topic and just talk about, I'm not going to talk about end of year carryover right now, but looking at next time, solar bylaw, housing production plan, and carryover items. Hopefully we won't have a 5 o'clock drop dead deadline to get that done. The next CRC meeting will be October 9, 3 o'clock. Nothing anticipated on 48 hours in advance. And thank you, Greg. Appreciate seeing your face.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Councilor Haneke,
Aye.
and Pam Rooney is an aye. So thank you, Nate, for hanging out with us and answering those questions, and Greg for joining us by car. Thanks very much. We'll talk again next time.
Thank you. You must be happy we have a hard stop.
Bye-bye.
Staff.
Cheers.
I'll
I
hit
keep
stop.
going. I think it's great.
I would too.
Thanks.
I better
Bye-bye.
stop the recording though.
All right.
Bye.
Babysitter till 5. All right. See ya.